Very good afternoon, Suki Hontu. Okay, welcome again to our fourth lesson. Today's lesson, we're going to talk about Upatissa, Sariputta, Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana, and also Nakulapita and Nakulamata. So today, this is our lesson on Ayasma Sariputta and Ayasma Moggallana. So today's content on Ayasma Sariputta, the marshal of the Dhamma, will be as follows. All right, let's dwell on the quest for the Dhamma on Sariputta's early life. So the story of Venerable Sariputta begins at two Brahmanical villages in India called Upatissa and Kolita, which lay not far from the city of Rajagaha. You can see from the map. Before our Buddha had appeared in the world, a Brahmin woman named Rupasari, living in Upatissa village, conceived, and so too, on the same day at Kolita village, did another Brahmin woman whose name was Moggali. So these two families were closely connected, having been friends with one another for 7 generations. Upatissa is described as having had a golden complexion. He had 6 siblings, 3 brothers named Upasena, Chunda, and Rebata, and 3 sisters named Chala, Upachala, and Sisupachala. Each of his siblings would grow up to become Arahant disciples of the Buddha. So according to the Pali tradition, Upatissa's father was named Vanggutta and his mother was named Sari, so alternatively called Rupasari. And his mother was the reason Upatissa later became known as Sariputta, meaning son of Sari. Putta means son. Sari is the name. So when the boys grew up, they were educated and acquired mastery of all the sciences. Right? They both became the master of Vedas through their education. Each of them had a following of 500 Brahmin youths. And when they went to the river or park for sport and recreation, Upatissa used to go with 500 palanquins, right? 500 palanquins, and Kolita with 500 horse carriages. So you can imagine how wealthy they are. So at Rajagaha, there was an annual event called the Hilltop Festival.
Can you hear me?
So they witnessed the celebrations with occasions.
I thought it's Sunday, it's 2:30, so I can jump already.
Sorry, Brother T, your please, your mic
right?
is...
Yeah. Oh, I can.
Brother T, sorry, your mic is on. It's okay. Yeah. So at Rajagaha, there was an annual event called the Hilltop Festival. So they witnessed the celebration with occasions for laughter and excitement. They went on the second day and the third day, where they could no longer laugh or get excited anymore. So realizing the pointlessness of the impermanent material world, the two friends set out as ascetics to search for an end to rebirth, and their thoughts arose. What is there to look at there? Before these people have reached 100 years, they will all have come to death. What we ought to do is to seek for a teaching of deliverance. So this is what they thought. They realized that this seeking a teaching of deliverance had to leave home and become ascetics. And Kolita also replied, "My thoughts are exactly the same as yours." So when he knew that his friend shared his inclination, Upatissa said, "That was a good thought of ours. However, for those who seek a teaching of deliverance, there's only one thing to do, and that is to leave home and become ascetics. But under whom shall we live the ascetic life?" They asked. Renunciation under Sanjaya Balata Putta. So at that time, there lived at Rajagaha an ascetic of the sect of the wanderers, Paribhajaka, called Sanjaya Belata Putta, who had a great following of pupils. Deciding to take ordination under him, Upatissa and Kolita approached him, each with his own following of 500 Brahmin youths, and all of them received ordination from Sanjaya. So within a short time, the two friends had learned Sanjaya's entire doctrine, and they asked him, Master, does your doctrine go so far only, or is there something beyond? And the master said, so far only it goes, and you know all. The Pali text described Sanjaya Balaputta as a teacher in the Indian skeptic tradition, with Upatissa and Kolita eventually becoming dissatisfied with his teaching and leaving. Having thus traveled through the whole of India, they return to Rajagaha. There they make a pact of brotherhood that whoever should find the deathless first would inform the others. Right? So they promise each other, right, to inform each other whoever find the deathless first. So this is just additional information for you to know who are the 6 heretical teachers during the time of the Buddha. So you can read this, right, in this sutta called Samana Pala Sutta, the fruits of the contemplative life, in Digha Nikaya, discourse number 2. Seeking deliverance, Upatissa meets Arahant Asaji. So now, after they left Sanjaya, Upatissa encountered a monk, Asaji, one of the Buddha's first 5 Arahant disciples. So he was struck by Asaji's dignified and serene appearance, and he thought, never before have I seen such a monk. He must be one of those who are Arahants, or who are on the way to Arahantship. Should I not approach him and question him? But then Upatissa considered, it is not the proper time now for putting questions to this monk, as he is going for alms through the streets. I had better follow behind him after the manner of supplements. Right? So he's being very polite in that way. Then, when eldest Asaji had finished his alms round and was seeking a quiet place to eat his meal, Upatissa spread out his own sitting cloth and offered the seat to the elder. So then the elder Asaji sat down and took his meal, after which Upatissa served him with water from his own water container, and in this way performed toward Arahant Asaji the duties of a pupil to a teacher. After they had exchanged the usual courteous greetings, Upatissa said, serene are your features, pure and bright is your complexion. Under whom have you gone forth as an ascetic? Who is your teacher, and whose doctrine do you profess? Arahant Asaji replied, there is, friend, a great recluse, a scion of the Sakyas, who has gone forth from the Sakya clan. I have gone forth under him, the Blessed One. That Blessed One is my teacher, and it is his Dhamma that I profess. Upatissa said, but what is your teacher's teaching? What does he proclaim? And he replied, I am but new to the training, friend. It is not long since I went forth from home, and I came but recently to this doctrine and discipline. I cannot explain the Dhamma in detail to you. Then the wanderer Upatissa replied, I am called Upatissa, friend. Please tell me, according to your ability, be it much or little. It will be my task to penetrate its meaning by way of 100 or 1,000 methods. And Upatissa added, be it little or much that you can tell, the meaning only, please proclaim to me. To know the meaning is my sole desire. Of no use to me are many words. So in response, the elder Asaji uttered this stanza, right? So this is the famous stanza in Pali, Yadama hetu pabhava, tesang hetung tathagato aha, tesang cha yo nirodo, ewang vadi mahasamanoti. So translation, of those things that arise from a cause, that Tathagata has told the cause, and also what the cessation is. This is the doctrine of the great recluse. So upon hearing the first 2 lines, there arose in Upatissa the dust-free, stainless vision of the Dhamma, the first gleams of the deathless, the path of stream entry. And to the ending of the last 2 lines, he already listened as a stream enterer. At once he knew, here the means of deliverance is to be found. Do not enlarge upon this exposition of the Dhamma, Venerable Sir. This much will suffice. But where does our master live? Then he went to Kolita, the wanderer, and Kolita saw him approaching and immediately knew, today my friend's appearance is quite changed. Surely he must have found the deathless. Yes, friend, the deathless has been found, said Upatissa. He told him all about his meeting with the Arahant Asaji, and when he recited the stanza, he had heard Kolita too was established in the fruit of stream entry. So then they say, where, my dear, does the master live? I learned from our teacher, the elder Asaji, that he lives at the bamboo grove. Then let us go, Upatissa, and see the master. But Sariputta was one who always respected his teacher, and therefore he said to his friend, first, my dear, we should go to our teacher, the wanderer Sanjaya, and tell him that we have found the deathless. If he can grasp it, he will penetrate to the truth. And even if he does not, he may, out of confidence in us, come with us to see the master. And hearing the Buddha's teaching, he will attain the penetration of the path and fruition. So both of them went to Sanjaya and told him about the Buddha has appeared in the world. They persuaded their master to go with them to see the Buddha, but Sanjaya refused to go with them, and he offered to appoint them as co-leaders of his community. But the two wanderers refused to be deflected from the decision, saying, oh, we would not mind always remaining pupils, but you, teacher, must know for yourself whether to go or not. Then Sanjaya thought, if they know so much, they will not listen to what I say. And realizing that, he replied, you may go then, but I cannot. I am a teacher of many. If I were to revert to the state of a disciple, it would be as if a huge water tank were to change into a small pitcher. I cannot live the life of a pupil now. They urged their master, do not think like that, teacher. Oh, teacher, when the Buddha has appeared in the world, people flock to see him in large crowds and pay homage to him, carrying incense and flowers. We too shall go there. And then, what will happen to you? To which Sanjaya replied, what do you think, my pupils? Are there more fools in this world or more wise people? Fools there are many, O teacher, and the wise are few. If that is so, my friends, then the wise ones will go to the wise recluse Gotama, and the fools will come to me. The fool, you may go now, but I shall not. So the two friends left, saying, you will come to understand your mistake, teacher. And after they have gone, there was a split among Sanjaya's pupils, and his monastery become empty. Okay? Seeing his place deserted, Sanjaya vomited hot blood. 500 of his disciples had left, along with Upatissa and Kolita, out of whom 250 returned to Sanjaya, with the remaining 250 and their own following. So the two friends arrived at Bamboo Grove Monastery. Meeting the Buddha. There, the master, seated among the fourfold assembly, was preaching the Dhamma. And when he saw the two wanderers coming, he addressed the monks. These two friends, Upatissa and Kolita, who are now coming, will be my two chief disciples to me, an excellent pair. Having arrived, the friends bowed low in homage to the Blessed One and sat down at one side. So when they were seated, they said to the master, may we obtain, Lord, the going forth under the Blessed One. May we obtain the higher ordination. And the Blessed One said, Eta bhikkhave, meaning, come, O bhikkhus. Well proclaimed is the Dhamma. Now live the life of purity to make an end of suffering. So this verse alone served as the ordination of these venerable ones. So upon ordination, Upatissa became known as Sariputta, son of Sari, while Kolita became Moggallana. Then the master continued his discourse. Right? So after ordaining him, he continued the discourse, but on that occasion, the two friends did not attain the higher path and fruits. For them, they needed a longer period of preparatory training. So after the entry into the Buddhist order, Venerable Moggallana went to live at a village in Magadha called Kalawalaputta, of which he depended on alms food. On the seventh day after his ordination, when he was engaged in intense meditation, right, he was troubled by fatigue and torpor. But spurred on by the master, the Buddha, he dispelled his fatigue, and while listening to the master expound the meditation subject of the elements, Pali called Dhatu Kamattana, he won the three higher paths and reached the acme of achieved disciple perfection. That's arahantship. Okay? But when Venerable Sariputta continued to stay near the master at a cave called the Boar's Shelter, right? In Pali, Sukara Kata Lena. So he stayed near the master and he depending on Rajagaha for his alms, right? So they go separate ways. Now, half a month after his ordination, the Blessed One gave a discourse to Sariputta's nephew, the wandering ascetic called Diganaka. According to Diganaka Sutta, right, or in other words, the other sutta named Vedana Parikaha Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya MN74, Venerable Sariputta was sitting or standing, in some sutta says, behind the master, fanning him. So while listening to the discourse and following it attentively with his mind, as though sharing the food prepared for another, Venerable Sariputta reached the acme of knowledge pertaining to a disciple's perfection and attained to arahantship together with the four analytical knowledges, Patisambheda Nanya. But his nephew at the end of the sermon was established in the fruit of stream entry. Okay. So Venerable Sariputta attained arahantship by quick penetration in 2 weeks, but his progress was smooth, called Sukha Patipada. Right? Sukha is like Patipada. And you can see this in the Anguttara, chapter 4, verse 167 to 168. But Venerable Moggallana attained arahantship by quick penetration too, Kipabhyana, that is in 1 week. Right? He also penetrated quick penetration, but his progress was difficult one, called Dukkha Patipada, compared to Venerable Sariputta is smooth Sukha Patipada. Right? And Moggallana required the helpful assistance of the master. Venerable Moggallana had advanced to the goal more speedily than Venerable Sariputta because the Buddha directed and inspired him personally and intensively. But Venerable Sariputta was superior to him in regard to the independence of his progress and also in the detailed scope of his knowledge. So when the master bestowed upon the two elders the rank of chief disciples, some monks were displeased and commented that the master should have given the rank of chief disciples to those who ordained first, that is the group of 5 disciples. Okay, but passing over these great elders, he has given it to those whose ordination was the very last of all. They're referring to Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana. But the master explained, I did not show preference, but give to each what he has aspired to. Anya Kondana, in the previous life, gave alms 9 times during a single harvest. He did not aspire to chief discipleship. His aspiration was to be the very first to penetrate the higher state, arahantship. Whereas Sariputta and Moggallana made the aspiration for chief discipleship, and now the conditions for fulfillment of that aspiration have ripened. Hence, I have given them just what they aspired to, and did not do so out of preference. So that was the exact explanation the master gave to all the bhikkhus. So you can read from this Moggallana Sutta in AN 6.17 and Sariputta Sutta in AN 6.168, one after another, where else he says that he had penetrated quick but difficult, where else, you see here, Venerable Sariputta, I relied on painful practices with swift insight to free my mind from defilements by not grasping. Sariputta, he says that I rely on pleasant practice with swift insight to free my mind. So you can read more about this in the respective sutta. Again, Sariputta's original aspiration, this you might want to take note because I believe this is one of the exam questions, how he became the chief disciple. Let us go through quickly. So his original aspiration, as the legend unfolds, one incalculable period, asankhya, and 100,000 aeons in the past. At that time, the being who was to become the Venerable Sariputta was born into a rich Brahmin family and was given the name Sarada. At that time, the future Moggallana was born into a wealthy householder family and was named Sirivardhana. The two families were acquainted, and the two boys became the best of friends. On the death of his father, Sarada inherited the vast family fortune, but before long, reflecting in solitude, he approached his best friend Sirivardhana and invited him to join him on his quest seeking a path of deliverance. But Sirivardhana, still too strongly attached to the world, refused. He's the only child. However, Sarada gave all his wealth, left the household, and took up the life of a method pair ascetic. He quickly mastered the mundane meditative attainments and supernormal powers and attracted to himself a band of disciples. Thus, his hermitage gradually became home to a large community of ascetics. So he has his own personal hermitage. At this time, the Buddha Anumodasi, the 18th Buddha in antiquity, had arisen in the world. One day, the Buddha Anumodasi cast his net of knowledge out upon the world and beheld the ascetic Sarada and his retinue. And he saw Sarada and his retinue. So the Buddha then journeyed to his hermitage, and Sarada noticed the marks of physical excellence on the body of his visitor, that's Buddha Anumodasi, and at once understood that this guest was a fully enlightened one. Meanwhile, the Buddha's monks, 100,000 arahants, had came to join him at the hermitage, led by the two chief disciples, Nisaba and Anuma. So the name Nisaba and Anuma, there's the two chief disciples of then the Buddha Anumodasi. So to honor the Buddha, the ascetic Sarada took a large canopy of flowers, and standing behind the Blessed One, held it over his head. Canopy is like an umbrella. The master entered the attainment of cessation, Nirodha Samapatti. So the master and the arahants were in meditation. So the meditative state wherein perception, feeling, and other mental processes utterly ceased. He remained absorbed in his state for a full week, while throughout the entire week, Sarada stood behind him holding aloft the canopy of flowers. So as the Buddha Anumodasi and the Arahants were meditating for the full 1 week, Sarada continued holding the umbrella for the full 1 week. So when the Buddha emerged from the attainment of cessation and requested his two chief disciples to give talks to the community of ascetics, remember that's Nisaba and Anuma, when they had finished speaking, he himself spoke. The Buddha spoke. And at the end of the discourse, all the ascetic pupils of Sarada attained arahantship and asked to be admitted to the Buddha's order of monks. When the Buddha emerged from the attainment of cessation and requested the two chief disciples to give the community, they had finished. Repeat again. Then Sarada, however, did not attain arahantship. nor any other stage of sanctity. For as he was listened to the discourse of the chief disciple Nisaba and observed his pleasing deportment, the aspiration rose in his mind to become the first chief disciple of the Buddha in the future. Right? Remember, he was holding the canopy for the full 1 week. Obviously, he was trying to stay awake and he was not in meditative absorption, while his other followers were in deep absorption. They attained arahantship. Right? So, this Sariputta or Sarada was listening, was carrying the canopy. So then Sarada approached the Buddha Anumodasi, prostrated himself at his feet and declared, Lord, as the fruit of the act of homage, I perform toward you by holding the canopy of flowers over you for a week. I do not aspire for rulership over the gods, nor the status of Mahabrahma, nor for any other fruit but this, that in the future I might become the chief disciple of a fully enlightened one. The master, sending out his knowledge into the future, he saw that his aspiration would succeed, thus saying, in the future, after an incalculable age and 100,000 aeons, a Buddha by the name of Gautama will arise in the world, and you will be his first chief disciple, the marshal of the Dhamma, named Sariputta. So after the Buddha left, Sarada went to his friend Sirivardhana and urged him to make an aspiration to become the second chief disciple of the Buddha Gautama. Now Sirivardhana had a lavish alms hall built and invited the master and his monks to come for alms meal. For the full week, Sirivardhana provided the Buddha and the monks with a daily meal. At the end of the festivities, having offered costly robes to all the monks, he approached the Buddha and announced, by the power of this merit, may I become the second chief disciple of the same Buddha, under whom my friend Sarada will become the first chief disciple. So the master looked into the future and gave the prediction he would become the second chief disciple of the Buddha Gautama, a monk of great power and might known by the name Moggallana. So on their death, Srivardhana was reborn in a sense-sphere heavenly world, while Sarada, having mastered the meditative attainments and the divine abodes, right, was reborn in the Brahma world. So let's continue with the story of Sariputta, the man, how he became chief disciples. In the Mahapadana Sutta, the great discourse on traces left behind, right? Padana means traces left behind, Maha means the great. In Digha Nikaya 14, the Buddha relates details of the life and going forth of the 6 Buddhas who preceded him. He mentions their names, the periods in which they arose, their castes and clans, their lifespan, and the milestone of their teaching careers. He also states the names of their 2 chief disciples as the chief pair of disciples, the excellent pair, Savaka Yugang, Agang Padayugami. Elsewhere in the Pali Canon, Ukachela Sutta at Ukachela in SN 47.14, the Buddha declares that all the Buddhas of the past had a pair of chief disciples, such as he had in Sariputta and Moggallana, and all the Buddhas to arise in the future would likewise have such a pair. So the basic function of chief disciple within the Buddha's dispensation may be enumerated as threefold. Right? So to help the master in consolidating Dhamma for as many beings as possible, both human and celestial, to serve as models for the other monks to emulate and to supervise their training, to assist in the administration of the Sangha, particularly when the Blessed One goes into solitary retreat or travels alone on an urgent mission. So in Buddhist tradition maintains that the first chief disciple, one constantly on the right-hand side and the other on the left. Of the 2, the right-hand disciple, the one regarded as the closest to the Blessed One, is the disciple distinguished by excellence of wisdom, Mahapanya. In the case of Buddha Gautama, this was Venerable Sariputta on his right side. The other disciple, Venerable Moggallana, on his left, is distinguished by his versatility in the exercise of spiritual power, iti. As the first chief disciple, Venerable Sariputta's special task in the dispensation is the systematization of the doctrine and the detailed analysis of its content. Here, we will focus upon the ways they jointly fulfill the other two roles of the chief disciples, serving as exemplars and mentors for the monks and assisting the administration of the Sangha. So now the Buddha held Sariputta and Moggallana as models for the other monks to follow, saying, "Oh, may I become such as Sariputta or Moggallana." Right? This is in Ayacheya Sutta, should wish, in AN 2.131. Right? So in the mastery over the three aspects of the path, the Magga, virtue, Sila, concentration, Samadhi, and wisdom, Panya. So these two embodied the qualities of monks still in training were to acquire for themselves. So because they possessed the analytical and knowledges and skill in speech, they were ideal teachers to whom the younger monks could turn for guidance and instruction. So in essence, any monks who wish to become the best monk, right, the Buddha always say, right, so become like Sariputta and Moggallana, right? So these are the two models. And the Buddha said, associate, or monks, right? Associate means be friends with Sariputta and Moggallana and keep company with them. They are wise bhikkhus and helpers of their fellow monks. Sariputta is like a mother who brings forth, and Moggallana is like a nurse to the newborn child. Sariputta trains his pupil in the fruition of stream entry, and Moggallana trains them for the highest goal. So in Buddhist texts indicated that Venerable Sariputta still had some flaws, right? Not so perfect. In Chattuma Sutta at MN 67, so when a group of young monks made noise and were ordered by the Buddha to leave, the Buddha reprimanded Venerable Sariputta for not concluding that it was the chief disciple's responsibility to look after the monks. Something Moggallana was able to conclude, meaning Moggallana was able to give the correct answer to the master, right? Because as two chief disciples, they are supposed, to discipline the monks. Often the Buddha charged the two chief disciples with special missions arising out of pressing circumstances. On such occasion was when he dispatched them to Vulture's Peak to win in back a group of young monks who were being led astray by Bhikkhu Devadatta, the Buddha's ambitious cousin. Another time that Sariputta and Moggallana worked together to restore order in the Sangha was when a group of monks led by Asaji, not the first 5 ascetic, but another Asaji, and Punabasu, living at Kitagiri, were misbehaving, socializing with young girls and mingle with lay people in ways that tainted the dignity of the Sangha. So despite repeated admonitions, finally the act of banishment, right, Prabhajayana Kama, was pronounced by the two chief disciples. So these are the responsibilities. Sariputta as the helper. So among the bhikkhus, Venerable Sariputta was outstanding as one who helped others. In Devadaha Sutta, SN 22.2, Buddha himself said to his great disciple, Sariputta, bhikkhus, is wise and a helper of his fellow monks. In the commentary, in explanation of these words, refer to a traditional distinction among the ways of helping them. So what does it mean by helper? Sariputta was helper in 2 ways, by giving material help, amisa nugaha, and by giving the help of the Dhamma, Dhammanugaha. Elaborating on the way he provided, what's material help? The commentary says that the elder did not go on alms round in the early morning hours as the other bhikkhu did. Instead, when they had all gone, he walked around the entire monastery grounds, and whenever he saw an unswept place, he swept it. Whenever refuse had been removed, rubbished, he threw it away. Where furniture such as beds and chairs or earthenware had not been properly arranged, he put that in order. He did so that the non-Buddhist ascetic who might visit the monastery would not see any disorderliness and speak in contempt of the bhikkhus. Then he used to go to the hall for the sick, and having spoken consoling words to the patient, he would ask them about their needs. So to procure the requirements, he took with them young novices and went in search for medicine, either by way of the customary alms round or to some appropriate place. When the medicine was obtained, he would give it to the novice, saying, "Caring for the sick has been praised by the master. Go now, good people, and be heedful." After sending them back to the monastery sick room, he would go on to the alms round or take his meal at a supporter's house. The above was his routine when staying for some time at the monastery. But when going on a journey on foot with the Blessed One, he did not walk at the head of the procession, shod with sandals and umbrella in hand, as one who thinks, "I am the chief disciple." So meaning, even though he's a chief disciple, he was not arrogant. It's very humble bhikkhu. Rather, he would let the young novices take his bowl and robes and go on ahead with the others, while he himself would first attend to those who were old, very young, or unwell, making them apply oil to any sores they might have on their bodies. Then either later on, the same day or the next day, he would leave together with them. Because of his solicitude for others, on one occasion, Venerable Sariputta arrived particularly late at the place where the others were resting. For this reason, he did not get proper quarters and had to pass the night seated under a tent made from ropes. Having seen this, the next day, the master, the Buddha, caused the monks to assemble and told them in the Titra Jataka, in the Jataka number 37, the story of an elephant, the monkey, and the partridge, right? This is the partridge bird, who, after deciding which was the eldest of them, lived together, showing respect for the most senior. So he then laid the rule that lodgings should be allocated according to seniority. This is also emphasized in the Vinaya rule. So when Ananda Pindika, his foremost lay disciple, was lying on his deathbed, he requested Venerable Sariputta to visit him out of compassion. So Venerable Sariputta came at once, accompanied by Venerable Ananda, and preached to the dying man a stirring sermon of non-attachment. Right? So you can read that in Ananda Pindika Vada Sutta, advice to Ananda Pindika in the Majjhima Nikaya, verse 143. He told the lay disciple that he should put away clinging to all the phenomena of the conditioned world, to the 6 sense faculties, the 6 sense objects, the 6 kinds of consciousness, the 6 kinds of contacts, the 6 kinds of feeling. So in brief, to everything seen, heard, sensed, and thought. So Ananda Pindika was so moved to tears by this profound discourse, the likes of which he said he had never heard before. Shortly after his encounter, Ananda Pindika died and was reborn into Sita heaven. One night, while the rest of the world slept, the others were sleeping, the new Deva, Ananda Pindika, paid a visit to Jetavana in his celestial body, and in the presence of the Blessed One, recited a verse in praise of his chief disciple. Sariputta truly is endowed with wisdom, with virtue, and with inner peace. Even a monk who has gone beyond, at best, can only equal him. So the Deva, the Ananda Pindika, mentioned this to the Buddha. So the next day, the Buddha informed the monks what had happened, but he did not mention the identity of his visitor. But Venerable Ananda then said to the master, "Venerable sir, that young Deva must surely have been Ananda Pindika, for Ananda Pindika had full confidence in the Venerable Sariputta." So the Buddha confirmed that Venerable Ananda's inference was correct. So it was in this manner that Venerable Sariputta gave the help of the Dhamma, a great leader and outstanding spiritual advisor. So he brought to the task of guiding others not only a keen and perceptive understanding of the human mind, but also a warm, sympathetic, interest in other people, which must have been a great encouragement to those under his guidance. Unresentful. Unresentful means forgiving. The Dhammapada commentary in verses 389 to 90 records the outstanding traits of Venerable Sariputta, the chief disciple. His patience and forbearance, even when people abused him and strike him, he feels no trace of anger. So when Sariputta's humility was as great as his patience, he was willing to receive correction from anyone. So not only with submission, but with gratitude. It is told in the commentary to the Susima Sutta about Susima, SN 2.29, that once, through momentary negligence, a corner of the elder's underrobe was hanging down, and a 7-year-old novice seeing this pointed it out to him. Sariputta stepped aside at once and arranged the garment in the proper way and stood before the novice with folded hands, saying, "Now it is correct, teacher." Even him, as a chief disciple, said gratitude to the 7-year-old novice and call him teacher. In the Nava Sutta, in the Sutta Nipata, and also in the Dhammapada commentary, in verse 392, that whenever Venerable Sariputta lived in the same monastery as the elder Asaji, immediately after having paid homage to the Blessed One, he always went to venerate the great elder. And when Elder Asaji lived in another monastery, he used to face the direction in which he was living and paid homage to him by touching the ground at 5 places with head, hands, and feet, and saluting him with joint palms. But this action led to misunderstanding. For when other monks saw Venerable Sariputta acting thus, commented that he cannot give up his Brahmanical views. When this complaint reached the Blessed One, and the Buddha explained, "This is not so, bhikkhus. Sariputta does not worship the heavenly quarters. He salutes the one through whom he first learned the Dhamma, and worship and reveres him as his teacher. Sariputta is one who gives devout respect to his teacher." Okay, so, sorry, this is the same one. So the turner of the wheel. The suttas. When Sariputta understood in a unique way how to organize the rich material of the Dhamma lucidly, in a manner that was intellectually stimulating and also an inspiration to practical effort. We find this exemplified in 2 classic discourses of the Majjhima Nikaya. Right? So now we turn this topic on the turner of the wheel. So these are the 2 classic discourses. The Samaditi Sutta, Right View in MN9. This is a masterpiece of teaching and has widely used for instructional purposes in the Buddhist land throughout the centuries down to the present day. The Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the longest simile of the elephant's footprint, MN28. So this is also another masterpiece of methodical treatment. Another discourse on Venerable Sariputta that has been held in the highest esteem is the Samacitta Sutta, link-minded in AN 2.35, which was listened to by the Devas of tranquil mind, and the Sangiti Sutta, the recital in DN 33, and Dasuttara Sutta, the 10-4 series, DN 34. 2 more of Venerable Sariputta's sermons are both compilation of doctrinal terms according to a numerical scheme. The Sangiti Sutta was preached in the presence of the Buddha, and at its conclusion, he gave it his express approval. So when he recited this, the Buddha approved his sermon, his discourses. So if you want to mention about which are the suttas preached by Venerable Sariputta, you may make references to all the sutta. So when it comes to Abhidhamma, the most important contributions made by Venerable Sariputta to the Buddhist teaching namely his codification of the Abhidhamma, and according to Atta Salini, which is the commentary to the Dhamma Sangini, the Buddha preached the Abhidhamma in Tawatimsa, heaven, to his mother, Queen Maya, who had been reborn as Deva in Tusita. Right? So his birth mother, Queen Maya, born in Tusita, and she came down to Tawatimsa, where the Buddha taught Abhidhamma. So the Buddha taught there for 3 months, and when returning daily to the human realm for his alms food, right? So he cast his personality there, and he came down to the heavenly world for alms food, where he would meet up with Venerable Sariputta and transmit to him the method, in Pali called Naya, the method of that portion of Abhidhamma he taught, he had just preached. And this is where the Atta Salini, which is the Buddhist text composed by Buddhaghosa in the Theravada Abhidhamma tradition. Right? It's much later. So what the Atta Salini says, thus, the giving of the method was to the chief disciple, who was endowed with analytical knowledge, right? As though the Buddha stood on the edge of the shore and pointed out the ocean with his open arm. To the elder, the doctrine taught by the Blessed One in hundreds and thousands of methods became very clear. Thereafter, the elder passed on to what he had learned to his 500 disciples. Right? Because of his analytical knowledge, Venerable Sariputta was very skillful, right, in pointing out the the discourse on Abhidhamma and then transmitted from the Buddha to him, and then Sariputta also transmitted to his 500 disciples. Then further it says, the textual order of the Abhidhamma originated with Venerable Sariputta. The numerical series in the great book, Nipatana, was also determined by him. In this way, the elder, without spoiling the unique doctrine, laid down the numerical series in order to make it easy to learn, remember, study, and teach the law. So the Atta Salini also ascribed to Venerable Sariputta the following contributions to the canonical Abhidhamma. The 42 couplets, Daidas or Dukkha, of the Sutanta Matika are explained in the Dhamma Sangini. The fourth and the last part of the Dhamma Sangini, the Atuda Daraka Kanda, the synopsis, the arrangement for the recitation of the Abhidhamma, the Vachana Magga, the numerical section, the Ganana Chara of the Patthana. Then King Milinda compares the elder Nagasena to, later on King Milinda compares the elder Nagasena to Venerable Sariputta, saying, in this Buddha dispensation, there is none other like yourself for answering question, except elder Sariputta. Right? So remember during the time of King Milinda during the period of Emperor Asoka, so he met up with elder Nagasena. Right? So Nagasena was also very skillful, very, very learned. But he said that besides you, who else? Is none other than elder Sariputta. So the marshal of the Dhamma. Right? So this is captured in Milinda 420. So that grand reputation still lives on till today. Right? So this reputation. So his last paid debt. We now come to the year of Master Parinibbana. The Blessed One has spent the rainy season at Beluvagama, the village near Vesali. And when the retreat was over, he left the place and going by the way he had come, returned by stages to Savatthi and arrived at the Jetavana monastery. So when Venerable Sariputta realized that his end was near, this thought came to him. Do the enlightened ones pass away into final Nibbana first, or do the chief disciple do so? And he saw that his chief disciple who passed away first. Thereupon he considered his own life force and saw that his residue would sustain him for only 1 week. Right? So he knew that he only had 1 week left. And while thinking this over repeatedly, he remembered his mother, and the thought came to him. So although she is the mother of 7 Arahants, right? So all his other siblings were all Arahants already. She has no faith in the Buddha. He's referring to his mother. The Dhamma and the Sangha. Has she the supportive conditions in her to acquire that faith, or has she not? So she's wondering whether she still now have the faith or not. And calling the elder Chunda, his assistant, who was his attendant, to gather his group of 500 bhikkhus to take the bowls and ropes to go to Nalaka. Then together he went to the Blessed One, saluted him and spoke, "O Lord, may the Blessed One permit, may the Exalted One consent. The time has come for me to attain the final Nibbana. I have relinquished the life force." Then the Buddha said, "Where will you attain final Nibbana?" "In the Magadha country, in the village called Nalaka, in the chamber where I was born." Then the Buddha said, "Do Sariputta, what you think timely. But now your elder and your younger brethren in the Sangha will no longer have the chance to see a bhikkhu like you. Give them one last discourse on the Dhamma." So the great elder then gave a discourse in which he displayed all his wondrous powers, rising from the loftiest height of truth, descending to the mundane truth, rising again and again descending. He expounded the Dhamma directly and with similes. And when he had ended his discourse, he paid homage at the feet of the Master, embracing his feet, he said, "Master, if any deed or word of mine did not please you, O Lord, may the Blessed One forgive me. It is now time for me to go." The Buddha says, "There is nothing, be it in deeds or words, for which I should have to reproach you, Sariputta. For you are learned, Sariputta, of great wisdom, of broad and bright wisdom, of quick, keen, and penetrative wisdom. I forgive you, Sariputta, but there was not a single word or deed of yours that are displeasing to me. Do now, Sariputta, what you think timely." So you can read in Paravana Sutta, the invitation to admonish in Samyutta Nikaya 8.7. So 3 times Venerable Sariputta circumambulated Buddha, keeping it to his right, and paid reverence at 4 places, and with raised hand joined in salutation, he departed, going backwards until the Blessed One was out of sight. The citizen of Savatthi also, having heard the news, went out to the city in an unending stream, carrying incense and flowers in their hands. They followed the elder, lamenting and weeping. Sariputta then admonished the crowd and asked them to return. This is a road that none can avoid. And to the monks who had accompanied him, remember the 500, you may turn back now. Do not neglect the master. Then he made them go back. And with only his own group of disciples, a small group, he continued on his way. Yet still some lamented. Formally out, which means, formally out, noble monk went on journeys and returned. But this is a journey without return. To them the elder said, "Be heedful, friends. Of such nature indeed are all the things that are form and condition." And he made them turn back. So then Venerable Sariputta mother, fast forward, the mother arranged the birth chamber for the elder and lodgings for the bhikkhus, had torches lit, and then sent for the elder. So Sariputta, accompanied by the bhikkhus, then went up to the terrace of the house and entered his birth chamber. After sitting down, he asked the bhikkhus to go to their quarters. They had hardly left when a grave illness, dysentery, fell upon the elder, and he felt severe pains. So when Sariputta health rapidly began to deteriorate, and as he laid in his room, numerous devas, the great divine kings, the Sakka, the king of gods, Mahabrahma, and etc., all the devas came to pay their respect to him. The glorious illumination of the gods brightened up the whole room. Sari, the mother, was awoken by the bright light and came to see what the commotion was. When she witnessed all these gods paying respect to her son, she realized just how virtuous and holy her son was and went to see him as he lay dying. So, and he thought, rapture and joy have arisen in my mother. Now it's time to preach the Dhamma to her. What was it you were thinking about, Upasika? So he called the mother Upasika. I was thinking, if my son was such virtue, what must be the virtue of his master? When the Dhamma talk given by his beloved son had come to an end, the Brahmin woman was firmly established in the fruit of stream entry. So then Sariputta told the bhikkhu, saying, "For 44 years I have lived and traveled with you, my brethren. If any deed or word of mine was unpleasant to you, forgive me, brethren. Venerable sir, you have never given us the least displeasure, although we have followed you inseparably like your shadow. But may you, Venerable sir, grant forgiveness to us." After that, the elder Sariputta gathered his large robe around him, covered his face, and lay down on his right side. Chunda Sutta, SN 47.13, about his passing away. Bhikkhu Chunda now took his bow, arms, and went back to Savatthi and met up with Venerable Sariputta and went to Savatthi, and then he approached Venerable Ananda and having saluted him, told him about the passing away. And in Ukachela Sutta, SN 47.15, so not long after the passing away of both Sariputta and Moggallana, and at that time the Blessed One was seated in the open, surrounded by the company of bhikkhus. Blessed One said, "This assembly, O bhikkhus, appears indeed empty to me, now that Sariputta and Moggallana have passed away." This ends the story of the youth Upatissa who became the master chief disciple, the beloved marshal of Dhamma. Venerable Sariputta died on the full moon day of the month Kartika in October and November. So the death of Moggallana followed a half month later. So that was the story on Ayasma Sariputta or Venerable Sariputta. This is a Sanchi Stupa number 3, where the relics of Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana was first discovered in Raisin district of the state of Madhya Pradesh in India. So when the great stupa at Sanchi was opened up in the middle of the last century, the relic chamber was found to contain 2 stone receptacles. The one to the north held the body relics of Venerable Moggallana, whilst the south enclosed those of Venerable Sariputta. Okay, so now the past exam questions. So what are the special qualities and virtues of Venerable Sariputta? Okay, qualities and virtues. In this slide, there are a lot of information about that. And how did Venerable Sariputta became the chief disciple of the Buddha? So this is in his past aspiration of becoming a chief disciple. Right, and also how he met up with Venerable Asaji. Recollect the history of the past and present life of the first chief Venerable Sariputta Thero. Explain the virtues which were praised by the Buddha. So these 2 questions are quite similar. I checked through the past exam question. It seems that it's only these 2 years that have questioned on Venerable Sariputta. Right, so 2022, last year I already mentioned about Venerable Sariputta. You never know, the question may arise again next year, this year. Okay, so the reference list, most of the information was gathered in this book. All right, so Brother T, do you want to do the poll question before I continue with Ayasma Moggallana? Not too sure whether Brother T. Okay, if it's not that, then I will continue with Ayasma Moggallana. Right, okay. All right, the contents of Moggallana. Right, these are the contents briefly. So the story of the young Kolita and Upatissa are quite similar. So I will just go quickly. So in the small town near Kolita, near Rajagaha, capital of the kingdom of Magadha, a child was born who was destined to become the second chief disciple of the Buddha. The boy's parents named Kolita. After the town, the family belonged to the Moggallana clan, one of the most distinguished Brahmin clans of the period, who claimed direct descent from the ancient Vedic seer Moggalla. Kolita's father was born of the most prominent family from which the town's mayor was usually appointed. Being a member of such a high caste and of the town's most respected family, his father was almost a petty king. Thus, Kolita was raised in an environment of wealth and honor, knowing of no sorrows of life, right? So everything was very happy. He was educated entirely in the Brahmanic tradition, which upheld the belief in the reality of an afterlife and in the law of karma and its truth. So on the very day of Kolita's birth, a son was born to his other family, whom they named Upatissa. When the children grew up, they became fast friends and before long were inseparable, and their undisturbed friendship was to last until the end of their lives for more than 80 years. So they always lived amicably and struck together in whatever difficulties. So every year in Rajagaha hosted a celebration called the Hilltop Festival. So again, they said, what is the use to us of this frivolity? Is there anything here really worth seeing? What benefit comes from a life devoted to enjoyment and pleasure seeking? So they went to the Hilltop Festival the first day, the second day, and the third day. And this is what Kolita thought. So Upatissa too had spent a restless night, so disturbed by quite similar thoughts. So the two friends decided to undertake the life of ascetic in search of a spiritual teacher, a guru who could guide them to the liberating knowledge of enlightenment. So now the wandering and spiritual search. Right? It was about the same time when Prince Siddhartha married that Kolita and Upatissa left behind the worldly homes and started upon the quest for inner peace and salvation. Right? So together they go in search of a spiritual teacher, and at that time there were many teachers with many different views. Some of them even taught immoralism, some taught fatalism, others taught materialism. So in Rajagaha, however, there was one teacher who appeared to them. His name was Sanjaya Balaputta. Right, mentioned in the Pali Canon as one of the 6 non-Buddhist teachers. So after a short time, they realized that Sanjaya did not know what they were searching for, a cure for the illness of universal suffering. Hence, one day, the two friends approached Sanjaya and asked him whether he had still other teachings, more advanced. And he said, that is all, you know my entire teaching. So after he heard Sanjaya say, they decided to leave and continue their search elsewhere. So finding the teacher. Without knowing anything of the Buddha, they gave up their life as wanderers and about 20 years returned to their home country in Magadha. Right? This happened not long after the Buddha had set in motion the wheel of the Dhamma at Benares. But the two friends still had not given up hope. So they decided now to do their search separately for doubling the chances. So they agreed among themselves that who had first learned about convincing part of the deathless should quickly inform the other. So at that time, when both were about 40 years old, the Buddha had sent out the first 61 disciples, and all of them are saints or arahants, so that they may proclaim the teaching of the well-being and happiness of men. The Buddha himself had gone to Rajagaha, where the king Bimbisara of Magadha soon became his follower, and donated him the Bamboo Grove Monastery of Veluvana. So one day, Upatissa has gone to the town with Kolita stay back with the dwelling. So of course, Kolita saw his friend and said, your features are so serene, dear friend, and your complexion is so bright and clear. Should it have happened that you have found the road to the deathless? So it is so, dear friend, the deathless has been found, says Sariputta. So Upatissa then reported to Kolita that in the town he had seen a monk whose behavior impressed him so deeply that he was immediately convinced he was an arahant. So the monk, whose name was Asaji, replied that he was a disciple of the ascetic Gautama and referred to as the enlightened one. Right? So Upatissa also begged the elder Asaji to explain the teacher's doctrine. So, and then the doctrine is somehow as of those things that arise from a cause, the Tathagata has told the cause, and also what the cessation is. This is the doctrine of the great recluse. When the elder Asaji spoke this stanza, right on the spot arose Upatissa, the dust-free, stainless vision, right? And at the very same time, Kolita happened to Kolita when Upatissa repeated the same stanza to him. So then they decided to first go to Sanjaya and tell him that they have found the deathless. Right? So then they said, listen, teacher, a fully enlightened one has appeared in the world. Well proclaimed is the teaching, and his monks live the fully purified life. Come with us to see him. Of course, Sanjaya declined the invitation, right? And then when they notice, but when they notice Sanjaya would not go, half of them have returned, right? So this is the same thing as mentioned in Sariputta. Meeting the Buddha. So now the two friends at the head of 250 ascetic approached the bamboo grove. There the Buddha was teaching the Dharma, and they say, here monks, they are coming, the two friends, Kolita and Upatissa, they will be my chief disciples. So having arrived, they saluted the Buddha, raising the folded palms to the forehead and bowing to the feet of the master. Then the master said, then the two friends spoke. May we be permitted, O Lord, to obtain the blessed, under the blessed one, the going forth and the full admission. Then, of course, the Buddha responded, come monks, well proclaimed is the teaching, live now the life of purity for making an end of suffering. Right? So that's how they got the name, Sariputta and Moggallana. Now, the struggle and realization of the teaching. After all of them have obtained ordination, the Buddha addressed the 250 disciples and explained to them the teaching in such a way before they attained the first stage of emancipation, right, which is the stream entry, and in due course became Arahant. So obviously, Venerable Sariputta remained in the vicinity of Rajagaha and went to meditate in a cave called the Bear's Den. So whereas Venerable Moggallana chose at his abode the forest near the village of Kalawaputta in Magadha. Okay, so as you can see, with great zeal, he meditated there while sitting or walking up and down, but in this effort, he was often overcome by sleepiness. Though he did not wish to fall asleep, he was unable to keep his body erect and with his head upright. There, 3 times when he had to keep his eyes open, even by force of will. Okay, if one thinks of the tropical heat, the strain of his long years of wandering life, and the inner tension he had gone through, one can well understand that now, at the end of his quest, his body reacted with fatigue. Right? It is not that he's very lazy, but because of his traveling, finally he became very fatigued. His body is wearing off. But the awakened one did not lose sight of him. With his supernormal vision, he perceived the difficulties of this new monk, and by magic power, he appeared before him. When he saw the master standing, a good part of his fatigue already vanished. Now the awakened one asked him, are you nodding, Moggallana? Are you nodding? Yes, Lord. So then, this is how the Buddha instructed him, right? The following training steps to overcome the drowsiness. So do take note of this training. And the sutta says, continue, you should not give attention and not dwell on that thought. Then, by doing so, it is possible that your drowsiness will vanish. You should reflect upon the teaching as you have heard and learned it. You should ponder over it and examine it closely in your mind. You should repeat in full detail the teaching as you have heard and learned it. You should pull both earlobes and rub your limbs with your hand. You should get up from your seat, and after washing your eyes with water, you should look around in all directions and upwards to the stars and the constellations. You should give attention to the perception of light, to the perception of day. By the day, so by night, as by night, so by day. Thus, with your mind clear and unclouded, you should cultivate a mind that is full of brightness. With your senses turned inward, and your mind not straying outward, you should take to walking up and down, being aware of going to and fro, walking meditation. Mindfully and clearly aware. Lie down, lion-like, on your right side, placing foot on foot, keeping in mind the thought of rising, and on awakening, you should quickly get up, thinking, I must not indulge in the comfort of resting and reclining, in the pleasure of sleeping, then by doing so. So these are the instructions that the Buddha gave to Moggallana to overcome his sloth and torpor. So thus, Moggallana, you should train yourself. Right? This is in Anguttara Nikaya 4.58. So after Venerable Moggallana had received all these personal instructions of the master, as recorded in the Sutta Chapala Sutta, nodding, Chapala means nodding, in AN 7.58, he devoted himself again to his training with great ardor. With still greater vigor, he fought against the 5 inner hindrances. Right? So during his many years of ascetic life, he already had, to a great extent, suppressed sensual desire and ill will, which was the first and the second of these hindrances. With the help given by the Buddha, he conquered sloth and torpor, the third hindrances. When he overcome the fourth hindrance, restlessness and worry, by avoiding unprofitable social contacts, finally, he gave up doubt, the fifth hindrance, by following the concluding instruction of the Buddha, contemplating on the transiency of all phenomena and thus severing emotional attachment. So by overcoming these 5 hindrances, he was able to gain the experience of meditative states transcending the world of materiality. So he became an Arahant. So he approached the gate of to Nibbana, Arahantship. Having gained a firm footing in the first jhana, he next gained the second jhana, which is called the noble silence, stilling of the mind, in the Kolita Sutta, SN 21.1. Because within this absorption, all discursive thought is silent. Discursive thought means stilling of the mind. He then advanced to the fourth jhana. From there, he proceeded still further in the scale of concentration to the 4 formless or immaterial absorption, arupa jhana, and the cessation of perception and feeling, sanya vedayita nirodha. Then he gained the signless concentration of mind, which is free from all that marks or signless condition existence. This is in the Animita Panya Sutta, the question about the signless in SN 40.9. So you can read about the sutta here. So because of his difficulty and is aided by the master's instruction, he broke through these last most subtle fetters and attained to the final fruit, perfect liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom in all their fullness and depth. So Venerable Moggallana had become an Arahant. Like Sariputta, Venerable Moggallana was an Arahant of the type called liberated in both ways. Ubato Bhaga Vimutta, liberated in both ways. Those who can attain the 8 deliverance, the Atta Vimokkha, which included the 4 formless attainments and the attainment association, are called liberated in both ways. Liberated from the material body by means of the formless absorption and from all defilements by the path of Arahantship. Those who lack this mastery over the 8 deliverance but have destroyed all defilements through wisdom are called liberated by wisdom, Panya Vimutta. So these are the 4 Rupa Jhana and the Arupa Jhana. Even more, Moggallana had not only mastered the successive planes of meditative concentration, but also explored the road of psychic power, Iddhibada, and thus had achieved facility in the modes of supernormal knowledges, Abhinya. In his own words, he was one of whom he could be declared. He declared himself, supported by the master, the disciple attained the greatness of super knowledges. So the Venerable Moggallana later said that he attained Arahantship by quick penetration, Kipabhyana, that is in 1 week, but his progress was difficult, Dukkha Patipada, and now you know why, requiring the helpful assistance of the master. Venerable Sariputta too attained Arahantship by quick penetration in 2 weeks, but his progress was smooth, Sukha Patipada. He had advanced to the goal more speedily than Venerable Sariputta because the Buddha directed and inspired him personally and intensively, and also because he had lesser range to comprehend. Venerable Sariputta was superior to him in regard to the independence of his progress and also in the detailed scope of his knowledges compared to Moggallana. So his Moggallana magical powers. So his magical powers was the bhikkhu who had been most diligent in developing and cultivating the 4 roads to power, and thus the Buddha named him the foremost disciple among those who possess the psychic power in AN 1.14. There were, of course, other prominent disciples who were highly skilled in psychic powers, but they were usually proficient in one or two areas. But Venerable Moggallana had a comprehensive master over the psychic faculties that no other disciple shared, not even the nun Upalawana, who was foremost among the bhikkhunis in the exercise of psychic power. Moggallana was the only exceptional one. In the Buddhist canonical texts relate to Venerable Moggallana's supernormal faculties, presenting the material group according to the types of faculties, yeah? So the penetration of minds and thoughts reading, telepathy, the divine ear, clairaudience, the divine eye, clairvoyance, travel by mind made by body, astral travel, telekinesis, supernormal locomotion, and the power of transformation. So you can read in detail in this book, page 92 to 96. So in this sutta, the chapter on giving up the hindrances, AN 1.14. Monks, I do not see a single thing that gives rise to restlessness and remorse like an unsettled mind. Also, I do not see a single thing when restlessness and remorse have arisen that makes them increase and grow, like an unsettled mind. When the mind is not settled, restlessness and remorse arise, and once arisen, they increase and grow. So then, Moggallana previous life, in the Jatakas, the story about the Buddha former existence, it is reported that the Bodhisattva and Moggallana had lived together quite often. In no less than 31 lives, the two had met, and in 30 of them, Moggallana and Sariputta had lived together. The bond that had connected these three was already strong in previous life. So the first thing we find from the Jatakas is its close relationship in Bodhisattva. Moggallana and Sariputta were often the Bodhisattva brothers. You can find in all these Jataka stories 488, 509, 542, and 543. As his friends in Jataka 326 or his ministers in 401. Sometimes they were his disciples as ascetics in 423 and 522, or even his teachers, 539. Sometimes Sariputta is the son of Moggallana and the general of the royal Bodhisattva, 525. When the Buddha was Saka, king of gods, they were the moon god and the sun god respectively. Okay. The second point worth noting is the relationship of Sariputta to Moggallana. When in the Jakarta story, they sometimes play quite inferior parts when the level of rebirth is lower, right? And smaller when the rebirth is of higher level. So in this past relationship, reborn as a lower rank. So when reborn as animals, they rarely were equals, only as swans. Right? In Jakarta story 160, 187, 215, and 476 as swans. And Sariputta was most often born in the higher species of animals. When born as human beings in the worldly careers, right, Sariputta was always higher position than Moggallana as a royal prince and royal prince, right, in 525, royal minister and son of a slave, right, in 544. The only time when Moggallana appears in the Jatakas without Sariputta is a life he holds in the office of a Saka, king of gods. Another time when Sariputta and Moggallana lived on earth, they were stingy merchants who had buried much money, right? Much money. After that, they were reborn close to the buried treasure, but as snake and a rat. In Jataka 73. In the famous Jataka about the law of the Kuru people in 276, Moggallana is a keeper of grain stores and Sariputta a merchant. Both were very careful in observing the law of non-stealing. Right, so that is the story of the previous life of Moggallana. So now the last day and death of Moggallana. Soon after the passing of Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Moggallana had a bizarre encounter with Mara, the evil one, the tempter and lord of death, which may well have been a prenomination of his own imminent demise. Right? Soon afterwards, Venerable Moggallana felt that the time of his last existence was running out. Being an arahant, he saw no reason to extend his lifespan to the end of the eon by an act of will, and he calmly allowed impermanence to take its lawful course. The Venerable Moggallana passed away a fortnight after his friend, Venerable Sariputta, on the new moon day of the month Katika, October and November. In the autumn, the great decease of the Buddha took place on the full moon night of the month of Vaisakha in May. Then half a year after the death of his two disciples, the Buddha was in his 80th year when he passed away, while both Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana died at the age of 84. The circumstances of Venerable Moggallana's death are related in two sources. The Dhammapada commentary in verses 137 to 140 and the Jataka commentary in 5 to 3. Although these two sources share common core, they differ in details, which no doubt stem from embellishments in the course of oral transmission. So the account here will be based on the Dhammapada commentary. So whatever I say is based on Dhammapada commentary, with the differences in the Jataka commentary noted in parenting thesis. So now, a group of naked ascetics, resentful over the loss of prestige, pinned the prime responsibility for their hard times as Venerable Moggallana, and they wanted to eliminate him because Moggallana was getting very famous then. So the ascetic is losing their status, so they get very jealous. These ascetics were hesitant to kill him by their own hand, so they decided to employ a band of brigands, robbers, muggers, and offered them 1,000 gold coins collected from their followers in exchange for the great disciple's life, in exchange for them to kill Moggallana. At that time, Venerable Moggallana was living alone in a forest hut at the Black Rock, on the slope of Mount Isigili outside Rajagaha. After his encounter with Mara, he knew that the end of his days was near. Having enjoyed the bliss of liberation, he now felt the body to be an obstruction and burden and had no desire to use his psychic faculties to keep it alive for the rest of the aeons. Yet, when he saw the brigands approach, he knew they were coming to kill him, and he used his supernormal powers to slip through a keyhole. Yet, when he saw the brigands approach, he knew they were coming to kill him. So then the gangsters arrived at an empty hut, and though they searched everywhere, they could not find him. So they returned the following day, but this time the elder soared up in the air and escaped through the roof. So the next month, the bandits came again, but again they could not catch the elder. But in the Jataka story version, the bandits returned on 6 consecutive days and catch him only on the 7th day. So the Jataka version is different from the Dhammapada. Dhammapada said the next month. So that is the difference. Venerable Moggallana's motivation in escaping was not fear of death. He wasn't frightened of the bandits. He wanted to spare them such a fate by giving them time to reconsider and abstain from their crime. But the greed for the promised money was so great that they persisted and returned again the following month, or the 7th day of the Jataka account. So this time, the persistence was rewarded. For at that moment, Venerable Moggallana suddenly lost his psychic mastery over the body. The reason for this sudden change in fate lay in the terrible deed he had committed in the distant past, his karmic has ripened. His bad coming has ripened. Many aeons ago, in the previous birth, Moggallana had brought about the death of his parents. So in the Jakarta version, he relents at the last moment and spared them. So what happened was, he brought death to the parents in the Dhammapada's version. That heinous karma had brought him to a rebirth in hell for countless years, but he had not yet fully matured. A residue remained, and now, when he was in mortal danger, that residue suddenly ripened and confronted him with his fruit. So Moggallana realized that he had no choice but to submit to destiny. So the brigands, the bandits, entered, knocked him down, and pounded his bones until they were as small as grain of rice. Then, thinking that he was dead, the bandits threw his body behind a clump of bushes and fled, keen on collecting their rewards. Venerable Moggallana's physical and mental strength was formidable, and he had not yet capitulated to death. He regained consciousness, and by the power of meditation, he soared through the air and came to the presence of the Master. There he announced that he would attain final Nibbana. The Buddha asked him to give a final sermon to the community of monks, which he did, with an additional display of wonders and marvels. Then he paid homage to the Blessed One, returned just like Venerable Sariputta, returned to the black rock and passed into Nibbana element without residue. So in the Jataka version, the Jataka account more realistically omits the final sermon and has Moggallana expired right at the Buddha's feet. But in the Dhammapada, so when Moggallana requests for forgiveness, then the Buddha asked him to give his last sermon to the community of monks. In the last turbulent phase of his life, the karma of the past that had ripened so suddenly could affect only his body, his physical body, but could not shake his mind, for he no longer identified himself with his empirical personality. For him, the five aggregates that others identified as Moggallana were too as foreign as an inanimate body, because he was an Arahant already. This last episode of Moggallana's life, however, did not show that the law of moral causality has even greater potency than the supernormal feats of a master of psychic power. Even though Moggallana has this psychic power, this cannot even beat, the law of moral causality. But only the Buddha can control the karmic consequences, acting upon his body to such an extent that nothing causes premature death. So in the Tarikata 1102-61, it says, they penetrate the subtle truth as the tip of a hair with an arrow, who see the five aggregates as alien and do not regard them as self. Those who see conditioned things as alien and not as self have pierced right through the subtle truth as the tip of a hair with an arrow. Speaking about his chief disciples shortly after his death, the Buddha declared, those who in the past have been holy ones, fully enlightened ones, those blessed ones too, have such excellent pairs of disciples as I had in Sariputta and Moggallana. Those who in the future will be holy ones, fully enlightened ones, those blessed ones too, will have such excellent pairs of disciples as I had in Sariputta and Moggallana. So in the past, in the present, in the future, there will also have two chief disciples. Marvelous it is, most wonderful it is, bhikkhus, concerning those disciples, that they will act in accordance with the Master's teaching, will act in accordance with his advice, that they will be dear to the four assemblies, will be loved, respected, and honored by them. So Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana were such wonderful disciples. The Buddha said that the assembly of monks appeared empty to him after their death. It was marvelous that such an excellent pair of disciples existed, but it was marvelous too that in spite of their excellence, when the two had passed away, there was no grief, no lamentation on the part of the master. So here there are more exam questions on Moggallana. I have also put in Venerable Sariputta just to give you the difference. In 2020, question of Moggallana: what are the special qualities and virtues of Venerable Moggallana? Give evidence from the events of Venerable Moggallana's life, which led to the becoming the chief disciple of the Buddha. Again, you talk about Venerable Asaji and also his past life. That could give a little short story about here, how he became a chief disciple of the Buddha. And then in 2017, the same, almost similar question: what are the qualities and virtues? Give evidence from the past and present life of Moggallana, which led to his second disciple of Buddha. And 2014, also the qualities and virtues of Moggallana. Recall the history of the past and present life. So I gather these are similar questions. So now you can focus on the qualities and virtues of both these Venerable Moggallana and Venerable Sariputta. Okay, so you can also, these are the reference lists. With this, I come to the end of the Moggallana. Brother T, I'm not too sure you're there. If possible, if you like to do the poll question, we can take a short break here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you can do the short poll questions.
Okay. Which disciple exchanged his robe with the Buddha? Choose one, huh? Okay, the correct answer is Venerable Mahakassapa, not Anuruddha, not that one. It's Mahakassapa. He folded his robe 4 layers and asked Buddha to sit. And then Buddha says, soft is your robe.
That's it.
And then he said, okay, then you can wear it. Oh, just as a mother would protect her only child, even at the risk of her own life, even so, let him cultivate the boundless heart towards all being. The above question is extract from which sutta? Okay, the answer is D, Metta Sutta, Kelaniya Metta Sutta, not Bangla and not Ratana. Correct answer is D. Okay. According to Theravada Buddhism, there are how many planes of existence? This one very easy. Okay, this one very fast. 13 already. Okay, end of poll now. Okay, the answer is C, 31 plane, not 32. Actually, it's 32 mark, not 32 plane, 32 mark of Buddha. Okay, plane is 31 plane. Okay, practice of loving kindness, meditation will help to eradicate Okay, the correct answer is B, anger and hatred, not the greed. The Venerable Sariputta Thero attained arahanship on hearing the Buddha preaching on the sutta to ascetic. Who is the ascetic? Okay.
If you remember the cave, then you got the answer.
Okay, the answer is D, Diganaka, the ascetic. A, B, C, D, D is the correct one.
Actually, Brother Tia, this question, the ascetic, that is his nephew, it's not ascetic.
I don't know. I copied exactly from the exam question. I didn't change anything there.
Yeah, because if ascetic means it's like because he preached it. Remember Diganaka, he's the nephew. The nephew gained and swift entry.
Ascetic, I think.
Yeah, or they call it ascetic as
yes,
well.
Correct.
Yeah, Diganika, D is correct.
Okay, which disciple have the same physical feature as the Sammasambuddha? Okay, we got the 10 correct. Answer is A. Venerable Mahakassapa has got the same physical feature with the Sammasambuddha. Sariputta has got the same wisdom with Sammasambuddha. Moggallana has got the same equal psychic power with the Sammasambuddha. Which disciple did not visit the Buddha even though he knew that the Buddha would attain Parinibbana at the last watch of the night? Okay. A, B, C, D also got. Mahakassapa is wrong. Okay. Mahakassapa was outstation that time when he entered Parinibbana, not there. Dhamma Rama, B is the correct answer. Okay. He want to go for meditation. He keep meditation. He want to make sure he respect the Buddha because he knew Buddha. If he enlightened before Buddha become enlightened, then he will be very happy. So Dhamma Rama. Last week somebody asked about this name. Who is he? Okay, that is the correct answer. Subhada is the one who enjoy when Buddha rejoice when Buddha passed away. So answer is B. Oh, which king ordered his own father to be killed because he harbored a grudge that his father never loved and cared for him when he was a child? Okay, the answer is C is the correct one. Ajatasattu. Ajatasattu killed his father, King Bimbisara. Okay. What is taught in Mangala Sutta? This is multiple choice. You can click more than one. Wow. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, all also correct. Okay, all correct. Is 1, 2, 3, 4 also correct? Okay, stop sharing. I should end now. No more already.
I take over.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to have about maybe about 15, 18 slides here, so I can go quickly on Nakulapita and Nakulamata. So, the story about this couple, it's basically, I've given it into three parts here. So the first one is the Brahman of Saketa in Jataka 68. A Brahmin meets the Buddha and his son. So he said, in whom the mind is established. So this story was told by the teacher while at Anjana Vana about a certain Brahmin. Tradition says that when the fortunate one with his disciple was entering the city of Saketa for alms, an old Brahmin, on seeing the Buddha, fell down before his feet and said to him, "So, dear son, is it not the duty of sons to care for the mother and father when they have grown old? Why is it that for so long a time you have not shown yourself to us? This is the first time I've seen you. Come look upon your mother." And taking the teacher with him, he escorted him to his house. When the teacher had entered the house, he sat down on the seat prepared for him together with the order of monks. Here the teacher, we're referring to the Buddha Gautama. The Brahmin's wife also approached the teacher and falling before his feet said, "Dear son, where have you been all this time? Ought not mothers and fathers to be cared for when they have grown old?" So hereon she called to her sons and daughters that have their brothers have come and made them salute the Buddha. And in their joy, the aged pair, right, so the Nakula and Nakulamata, showed great hospitality to the guest. After his meal, the teacher recited to the old couple the sutta concerning old age. And when he had ended, both husband and wife won fruition of the second path. Then rising up to his seat, and the teacher went back to Anjava Vana. So the bhikkhus were puzzled as to why the Brahmin couple called the Buddha the son. So the Buddha explained, "Monks, in ages past this Brahmin was my father in 500 successive births, was my uncle in a like number, and in 500 more was my grandfather, and in 1,500 successive births, his wife was respectively my mother, my aunt, and my grandmother. So I was brought up in 1,500 births by this Brahmin, and in the 5,100 by his wife. Having told of these 3,000 births, the Buddha recited this verse, right? Yasmin mano nivisati chitang chapi pasidati adita pubake pose kamang tasminpi vasasati. In whom the mind is established, in whom the heart has confidence, in that person unseen before, in him too he gladly trusts. His lesson ended, the teacher showed the connection and identified the Jataka by saying, "This Brahmin and his wife were the husband and wife in all these existence, and I, the child." So this old man was the householder Nakulapita, or called Father Nakula. Right? Nakula's the name, Pita is father. His wife Nakulamata, Mata is mother, Mother Nakula. They were mentioned together by the Buddha as being among the foremost of his lay disciples, particularly for their unflattering faithfulness to each other. The brief account of them in the Pali Canon depicts a conjugal love of divine stature, accompanied by absolute trust based upon their common faith in the Blessed One. So the part 2, in Patama Sama Jivi Sutta, the same in living. Patama means first. And this is in AN 4.55. So on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Bhagas in Sumsumara Gira in the deer park at Bisakala Grove. Then in the morning, the Blessed One dressed, took his bowl and robe, and went to the residence of the householder Nakulapita, where he sat down in a prepared seat. Then the householder Nakulapita and the housewife Nakulamata approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side. The householder Nakulapita then said to the Blessed One, "Bhante, since I was young, when the younger Nakulamata was given to me in marriage, I do not recall ever transgressing against her even in thought, much less by deed. We wish Bhante to see one another not only in present life, but also in future lives. Right? So he's wishing that they can be together again and forever. The housewife, Nakulamata, in turn said to the Blessed One the same. Bhante, since I was a girl given to the young householder Nakulapita in marriage, I do not recall ever transgressing against him, even in thought, much less by deed. We wish Bhante to see one another, not only in the present life, but also in future life. So she said the same thing. So the Buddha said, householders, if husband and wife wish to see one another, not only in present life, but also in future life, they should have the same faith, the same virtuous behavior, the same generosity, and the same wisdom. Then they will see one another not only in this present life, but also in future lives. And the Buddha added these stanzas. So when both are faithful and bountiful, self-restraint of righteous living, they come together as husband and wife, full of love for each other. Many blessings come their way. They dwell together in happiness. Their enemies are left dejected when both are equal in virtue. Having lived by Dharma in this world, the same in virtue and observance, they rejoice after death in the Deva world, enjoying an abundance of pleasure. So now the prerequisites for a harmonious married life are explained by the Buddha in more detail in the Sigala Vada Sutta, Advice to Sigala Vada, in DN 31. There, we read that the husband, who is responsible for taking the initiative, should relate to his wife in 5 ways. So briefly, this is the advice for husband and wife, and vice versa. He should treat her with respect. He should not disdain her. He should be faithful to her. He should allow her authority in the household, and he should provide her with all necessities and adornments according to his means. If he conducts himself thus, his wife will take pride in looking after his needs. The household will run smoothly. She will treat callers and servants politely. She will be faithful, and she will protect his property and carry out her task skillfully and dutifully. So in part 3, Nakulapita Sutta in SN 35.121, so the Nakulas were not solely concerned with a favorable rebirth. They also took interest in the lawfulness governing human life and in the deeper problems of existence. Once Father Nakula asked the Blessed One, why is that some people attain to emancipation and others do not? The answer was, whoever clings to the objects perceived by these senses cannot gain liberation. Whoever stops clinging will be liberated. So it's here, you see, householder, there are sights known by the eye that are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. If a mendicant approves, welcomes, and keeps clinging to them, their consciousness relies on that and grabs it. A mendicant with grasping does not become extinguished. There are sound, smell, taste, touches, thoughts known by the mind that are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. If a mendicant approves, welcomes, and keeps clinging to them, their consciousness relies on that and grabs it. A mendicant with grasping does not become extinguished. Mendicant also as ascetic or a bhikkhu. In this way is bhikkhu, a monk. That's the cause. That's the reason why sentient beings aren't fully extinguished in the present life, because they keep grasping onto the elements here. Now, there are signs known by the eye that are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. If the monk doesn't approve, welcome, and keep clinging to them, their consciousness doesn't rely on that and grasps it. A mendicant free of grasping So this one is free of grasping, becomes extinguished. Right? So there are sounds, smells, and etc. A mendicant free of grasping becomes extinguished. That's the cause. That's the reason why sentient beings are fully extinguished in the present life. So you can read about this in SN 35.121. This is a very short sutta. In part 4, Nakulapita Sutta in SN 22.1, in brief, the householder Nakulapita visit the Buddha at Lavana and ask for a teaching to comfort him since he's old and always ailing. Right? The Buddha advises him to train his mind. So it is, householder, so it is. This body of yours is afflicted, weighed down, encumbered. If anyone carrying around this body were to claim to be healthy, even for a moment, what is that due to other than foolishness? Right? Because the body is old already. Okay? Therefore, householder, you should train yourself thus. Even though I'm afflicted in body, my mind will not be afflicted. Thus, you should train yourself. So Nakulapita then visits Venerable Sariputta and asks to explain the Buddha's teaching at this point. Venerable Sariputta gave a full explanation of the Buddha's concise words, expounding on the way to overcome physical sickness by not identifying the 5 aggregates, as you heard about the sutta just now. When the time comes, as it inevitably does, that the evidences of things become evidence, the well-trained person does not despair, but coolly looks on with equanimity. His body may wither, but his heart remains sound. Right? So this is the not grasping to the 5 aggregates. Right? So the body may wither, but the heart will remain sound. It was not only Father Nakula who strove for wisdom to overcome death. His wife also resembled in respect, as can be seen by another report in this sutta, Nakula's parent in AN 6.16. When her husband felt dangerously ill, Mother Nakula consoled him by saying, "Don't be worried as you die, householder. Death is painful for one who is worried. The Blessed One has criticized being worried at the time of death." While Nakula's father, the householder, was being exhorted by Nakula's mother with this exhortation, his disease was immediately allayed, right? Diminished. When he recovered from his disease, that was how Nakula's father's disease was abandoned. So she said, "Don't worry as you die. Even the Blessed One has criticized not to worry at the time of death." Then soon after Nakula's father, the householder, had recovered from being sick, not long after his recovery from his illness, he went leaning on a stick to the Blessed One. On arrival, having bowed to the Blessed One, he sat to one side. As he was sitting there, the Blessed One said to him, "It is your gain." Because remember, he already felt better. The Blessed One said, "It is your gain, your great gain, householder, that you have Nakula's mother, your wife. She was sympathetic and wishing for your welfare as your counselor and instructor, to the extent that I have a white-clad householder, female," right? So a lay disciple, female, "who act fully in accordance with the precept. She is one of them. To the extent that I have a white-clad householder, female disciples, like Nakula mother, who attain inner tranquility of awareness, she is one of them. To the extent that I have white-clad householder, female disciple, who reach firm ground in this doctrine and discipline, attain a firm foothold, attain consolation, overcome the doubt, dispel the perplexity, reach fearlessness, and gain independence from others with regard to teacher's message, she is one of them." Right? So she has practiced very well the precept. So now in conclusion about this couple, Nakulapita and Nakulamata, in conclusion, the deep affection between husband and wife on the one hand and the striving for deliverance on the other. Looking sympathetically at this story of the Nakula couple, one may come to think that a life of renunciation may not be necessary. If a married life is led in such an exemplary way, or that one can even combine attachment and detachment. So, in essence, it says that you don't need to become a renunciant, a monk or a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni. Okay, even in the married life, this is a great exemplary. Right, they can even combine attachment and detachment as a married couple life. But if one looks more closely, one will see that it's far from easy to follow faithfully the life led by the noble couple. Right? It's easier said than done. It is not enough that there is a concern and solicitude for one another. Now, the conditions for a married life is a chaste companionship, must not be overlooked. So the spouses who in their youth had led a married life full of sensual fulfillment, right? So this Nakulapita and Nakulamata, during their younger life, they lived a happy sensual fulfillment, and they did not abstain from physical contact, but only in the old age. And this is what I call can even combine attachment, and during the old age, detachment, right? So when the senses were quieted, when they grow old, the senses are quieted because they are more matured in their deliverance, the teaching, the precepts, but they voluntarily live a celibate life much earlier. In the cases of Nakula couple, they had lived without physical connection for 16 years, as their words to the master testify. Okay, so hence, the individual wishing to take the first step on the road to emancipation or liberation should make a personal decision to remain in the home environment and to try to outgrow essential temptations, or to overcome worldliness as a member of the Sangha. Right? So, if you want to maintain as a in the home environment or outgrow, or to renounce and become a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni. Even today, those who do not feel fitted for life in a monastic community may also lack the strength of character to renounce sexual relations in a married life devoted to progress on the path. So both ways of life would demand acts of renunciation. So the story of Nakulapita and Nakulamata, it is their endeavor and the persistency of becoming a married couple, and they really, remain in a home environment, and they have already outgrown their sensual temptation towards later part of their life. So that is the story of the Nakulapita and Nakulamata. Right, so you can refer to these references. Okay, so here I completed my sessions today. So Buddha Sasanang Chirang Titatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirang Titatu, Buddha Sasanang Chiratatu. May the Buddha's dispensation endure long. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, for this session on Nakulapita, there is no past exam question. So I suppose it's a very short story on them. So try as much as possible to read some of the short suttas. All right. If there's any questions, Brother T? Oh, for those who are just on the line, I've just sent a WhatsApp, one slide, which I have left out in the first session on the Sangha Nusati, on the 9 virtues of the Sangha, which relates to Pahuneo, which is acts of hospitality. So I've already put that in the WhatsApp, and later on I will resend the whole entire master slides. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for the oversight on that. Brother T, so I concluded my session today.
Sister Rachel, while waiting, may I ask one question?
Sure, Sister Susie, go ahead, please.
I'm just a little confused about the Nakulapita. The first one, the Brahmins, I mean the wife that they were the parents. Nakulapita, the same Nakulapita, or is it different story? And then when he was sick and all that, is it only the
Nakulapita here is mentioned in in the 4 parts, in the 4 parts incidents. So if you look at it, remember they have been a couple over and over and over and again, right? So in this, the first one, this is in Jataka 68, right? So this incident is happened in this situation, and then this one, right? It didn't say that it was in the same period, but this is in referring to their, how shall I say? This one is referring to the couple. It says that, from young, I've been married. This, I do not transgress. So basically, they have lived a very virtuous life, as husband and wife, very, very loyal to each other. So this is in referring to this sutta, right? So this is why the Buddha says, if you want, and in this sutta, it says that how can I become, I want to, sometimes in husband and wife, they say that, I want to be your husband and wife ever, forever and ever, right? So in the part next life as well. So in this sutta, the Buddha say, if you want to become a wife in another previous, in this present life, but also in future life, both husband and wife must have the same faith, same virtuous behavior, same generosity, same wisdom. All right. So whereas the first one incident is when they met, how this Nakulapita met up with the Buddha. Right. So it all started with this Jataka story. And then the old man said, oh, Buddha, you never come back and see me. So now he's talking about his past life. This one is, they ask, how can a husband and wife, live together, right? Present life and a future life. So this is what I call, same faith and so on. All right. Then to add on, the Buddha also have the Sigala Vada Sutta, right? And I'm not too sure whether you have seen this, but there's a long list of Sigala Vada Sutta.
Yes.
Oh, very good. Excellent. So this is one, then you can add on to it. This is addition. So when this one is concerned, this is about not clinging. So then the Buddha said, the Buddha's teaching is more about, liberation.
It's like the 5 aggregates now, and then
correct. Correct. Why the Buddha said the 5 aggregates, you don't cling on it. Because you cling on it, you become forever. You're meeting, ever and ever again. So which means that if you want emancipation, liberation, right, at the end of your life, right, the whole teaching of the Buddha is to attain full liberation. So this is a way that the Buddha said, you don't cling. If you cling to it, if you're free of grasping, right, then you will be fully extinguished in the present life and the next life, right? So in a way that this story is about the couple, right, and the couple to say is that, why do you need to cling on forever and ever? Isn't it a desire? Wouldn't you think that there's a desire to be the wife? I be your next life. I be your wife again, or I be your husband again. That's also a desire, craving, right? So this sutta came in as clinging, not grasping. Right? You see the connection?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
My question is, I just want to know, is it the same couple all through that Buddha relate the story? I mean, all the suttas, are they the same, or just the name?
In Nakulapita, this whole chapter is all about Nakulapita.
So that means from when he's cite the first case where the Brahman. So that time when Buddha cited this was during the Buddha's time, or is it the Jataka of the Buddha?
This one is the Brahmin meet the Buddha Gautama.
So when he meet the Brahmin Gautama, and then after that, the subsequent tales when they talk about Nakula, so that means Buddha refer to them in the younger days and refer to them when you are sick, the mind is not sick. Means Buddha refers to this same particular couple. Is that right? I'm just like, or is it same name? Sometimes same name and then different.
No.
Yeah.
I think Sister Susie, you got a point here. You got a point. But in whatever the text that I received, they didn't mention about it. So, but I gather that is the same people,
Yeah, because you
right?
see, like the
Ah.
first one, the Brahmin one, we thought is another Nakulapita, and then after that, the first one, because like it says, they're the parents and grandparents. Then after that, you have the sick case, and I mean, the sick one is another story. And then when you want to be a couple, I'm not sure. It's just a little bit of. It's okay, never
No,
mind.
the first one was already, right? So
Right.
they are old, they met up with the Buddha. So now the part two, this slide here, right? So now you're having a conversation with the Buddha. So assuming that you're having a conversation, it says that, Buddha, when I was young, which means that he knows that maybe they say that, oh, I'm getting old already. So how can I be, the next life, we also want to become husband and wife again. So then that's where the Buddha said, if you want to become husband and wife, this present life and the future life, you must have the same faith. So this is where he had given you the sutta, the stanza to say that this is how you need to stay as a husband and wife. Right? So this is so-called the precept of husband and wife. Right? So this is the discourse that the Buddha gave. So then the next, the part 3, the discourse here is about not clinging. Right? So he said that whoever clings to the object perceived by the senses cannot gain liberation. Right? So it's good to live over and over again, as husband and wife. But why would you want to do that? Right? Isn't that a desire? Isn't that a craving? Isn't that a clinging? Isn't that a grasping? Right? So now he's trying to, given them another discourse that says that let go. Right? So as you let go here, here it says that, of course, this one is when Nakulapita, the father, is old and dying already, isn't it? Right? So old and dying, and because of the wife, because the wife is, how should I say, she's very, she followed the precept and she understood, the teaching of the Buddha. So that's why how should I say, the Buddha told the father, the Nakula father, to say that it is a gain that you have such a wife or a mother that has become your counselor, right? So it is a gain because you follow, in accordance to the teaching and attain inner tranquility. She has reached, right, perhaps the stream entry level. Remember, when the first part, when the Buddha had already given them a discourse, they already entered the stream entry. They already attained stream entry. So now the Buddha is trying to encourage them, don't cling on. Right? So this is my understanding about this story of the couple. So I'm actually trying to put all this together. In fact, when I received the text, it's all, like here, there. So I'm trying to figure out, so what is this connection, with all the sutta? Then finally, I came to this conclusion, right? And this conclusion, I also, you can access this to this Nakula Sutta, Nakula parents in access to insight. So all this information I gather from them because this is the only information, or rather, I think it's also in the book, The Great Disciples, right, edited by Bhikkhu Bodhi, right? So in a way, I concluded here, which is also an excerpt from the textbook. It says that, as an old people, as a couple, here, you can either do two ways, right? You can live as couple, right, but remain home and try to outgrow the sensual temptation, or you renounce lah. You see what I mean? So that I put all the stories together, linked together. Hope this helps. Huh?
I start to see the link. It's pretty interesting. Let me see from the start, because from the start they have been together. I mean, 1,500
thousands and thousands years.
Thousands, and then now, like you says, then after that, when you're sick, then the third part whereby you actually can renounce, and then when you're sick, I mean, the mind is not sick. Something like that. I mean, you can see that. Yeah, thank
It's
you.
Try to figure out this story. This story is telling you something. This story is telling you the life of a couple. All right, and what are the stanzas? What are the suttas that are related to couples? Right, and also in terms of how the past karmic how should I say, the deeds right, they appear in the present life and so on. So like you say, you take it as not interlinked all together, but I'm sure 1,000 Malay, there's so many suttas going on. So this is just a great examples. Okay?
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Sister Chai Hun, you got the
Yeah, I sent in the WhatsApp group.
WhatsApp
But
group. Okay.
actually, it is okay if cannot. Maybe we have to find more Jataka stories. Then only we can relate lah. Because by reading the example given, I cannot relate. But maybe it has its significance. Maybe after we all lah, I don't know lah. But I try to Google, I cannot find anything related to it lah. Actually.
Okay. All right. Okay. Brother T, are you there? All right, we still have some time. Is there any other questions? If you have done any draft to any of the question here, feel free, to send to me via email. I'll be more than happy to take a look and try to assist wherever I can. Okay. Unfortunately, there's no past question on this Nakulapita and Nakulamata. All right. So, but there's also no questions. Hopefully, not too sure. What questions they would ask. Maybe they will ask in the objective questions, but not subjective. Not too sure. But the most important one is be proficient in, of course, Sariputta, Moggallana. Even Moggallana has more questions than the question on Sariputta. And then we have, of course, Ananda. Then, of course, the Bhikkhuni order. 9 virtues of the Sanghas has got a lot of questions on that. So next week we're going to touch on the Sivali, right? Rahula, Dr. Jivaka, and Ananda Pindika.
Just curious, we are not learning Khema in Upalavana.
No. Next week,
Okay.
the syllabus given to me next week will be Sivali. I will put it into the WhatsApp chats. Sivali, Rahula, Jivaka, and Ananda Pindika. So in the book, The Great Disciples, I saw that you have Ananda Pindika. There is no Rahula. So Rahula, you can do some research work on that lah, right? I think there's also have no Sivali. There's no Sivali. Okay. So next week there is Sivali, Rahula, Jivaka, Ananda Pindika. And then the last one on the 12th of August, we will do Mahakachana. Mahakachana is in the textbook. Chitta is also in the textbook. Kisa Gotami and Angulimala. So the last 4, it will be in the text. So that's all for the syllabus. There's no Khema. There is no, what did you say? Khema and someone?
The top 2 female disciples.
Oh, the female. No, there is none of these 2.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
I will come back to your question.
Yeah.
You go to the share drive, there is a note. There's a note called supplement note for lesson 5. It's a not a spreadsheet, it's a words file. You go in that one. This note actually is very good for the 31 mark, the 32 mark. That one is very good. For example, like his body has got a projecting heel, long finger and toe, and straight body. Actually, in the past life, he reject taking life. So this life he lived very long, and then if he become a current present householder, what he will do, and then if he renunciate the homeless, what he will become. And then if let's say he live long life, he prevent taking life, you find a Jakarta story that he stopped killing people or killing people, you find that story. You got what I mean or not?
Yeah, that's why I have to read more Jataka story.
You're going to find a story that is related, but already given 3, you find which one is suitable to put into where, then you prepare yourself which to put into what. Even if you write that one, you don't put the Jakarta story, you will still pass. No worry one. You just want to get more mark only, that's it.
Okay.
Even you write that one is actually this one is a very hard one. I didn't actually during the last year exam I didn't prepare this one because this one is a very hard one to write.
Yeah,
Sister
yeah.
Sister Chai Hun, I'm very curious. This question is in which syllabus?
It's been one of the question. I don't know where. I read the question. Got later. I find the question.
Under Sister Jane, lesson 4.
Say again.
Sister Jane Pang, lesson number 4.
Oh, it's under. Oh, it's what?
In the first module, module A.
The life of the Buddha.
Yes, yes.
Okay. It's like that. That's why I'm trying to put a link of Sister Chai Hun's link to my syllabus here. I said, how does it connect?
Sorry, it's not your syllabus. It's just that I didn't join the class very early stage. I joined very last stage. But I read through
Okay.
the material in the SharePoint. So just bring the
Actually, for Buddha, he tried to prepare the what they call the quality, the 9 quality. That one is very easy to write, and then you can write in point form also. That one is very popular one. The Buddha's quality, that one is very easy one.
Yeah, I think this is not a question to choose because
Actually, can refer to this Sutta Lakkhana Sutta.
I prepare 6 essay for Buddha itself. 6. None of the one is 32 mark because this one is very hard to write. A lot of things to remember.
Yeah.
Sister Chai can refer to this Sutta Lakkhana Sutta DN30.
Yeah, I read the Lakkhana Sutta. It's very long. But until I read, I still see like the Jataka story not related lah. But maybe because I didn't know much of the Jataka story lah, so cannot say so also lah. Never mind, it's okay. Don't choose the question. Then have it. No.
Sister Chai Hun,
go to this note actually is very helpful. The note they call supplementary note for lesson 5. Actually,
yeah.
From this year, this note actually is from last year one. It's in the share drive. You can go in and take a look.
Yeah.
Sister Chai Hun, do you know the Jataka story number?
Yeah, it's there.
Is there? Are you able to pull out from can you do a research from the website? If you put Jataka story, what number, they will give you the entire story. So when the entire story there, you can get you do your own summary of what is the gist of the Jataka story.
Yeah, I actually tried to Google, but the Google one, I didn't find something related lah. So maybe have to know the good website to know where is a good website to refer to lah. Or else
you try and give me what number? You try and give me. I'll try and Google and see what is that Jataka story. You can WhatsApp You can WhatsApp later if you cannot find now.
There are a lot of notes actually inside the share drive.
18 and 447.
Very useful. A lot of notes actually I put inside there. You can go in and take a look. Actually, it's not. Some is this year one. Some is from the last year one. Those are in words form very, very useful.
Sorry, Jataka.
542, 18 and 447.
542,
18 and 447.
Three Jataka story. 542 and 18 and 447. Okay, I will try and see because I'll try and look up for it.
Okay, thank you. I mean, not a big issue lah. Actually, it's just curious how is it related to the 32 parts only lah.
Okay. Interesting question. We'll all learn together and see how we could reply on that. Okay.
Do that. Thank you so much. Sadhu.
Thank you. Okay. Sadhu. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Brother T.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.